We can now go across, bring in Tara Kangarlou, who is in New York. She's a global affairs journalist and author of The Heartbeat of Iran. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. What, in your opinion, explains the longevity of these protests?
I mean, as we have seen, and Reza mentioned, these protests are into their fourth week now, and people seem to be as adamant, as angry, and keen to see their demands met. People want change, and they certainly are not going anywhere. As I've said before and written on this, certainly we are no longer going to go back where Iran and Iranian people were 4 weeks ago. This movement will continue until people see tangible and sustainable change.
Let's talk about that because, you know, the government has resorted to its regular tricks, pointing the finger of blame at Israel, at Washington, etc. Do you think that if there was a fundamental desire to change, maybe to relax things like the mandatory hijab, these protests would abate essentially?
Well, first of all, as Reza mentioned, the protests are not necessarily about the hijab, right? People in Iran, millions of them, quite frankly, more than 80 million people are suffering from various socio-economic challenges. The rage that you see on the streets, people risking their lives, is not strictly because of the hijab. Now, if at all the government of Iran is interested in showing that it's in fact hearing the people, not just a small group, but millions of people who have showed their rage and anger. They need to stop the violence. They need to stop the crackdowns. They need to release the detainees, the prisoners. I mean, the two journalists who covered Mahsa Amini's death are still detained. Why? This does not show goodwill. This does not show at all any interest from the government to really do anything or respond positively to any of its citizens' demands. And I think the perpetual crackdown and brutal oppression that we're seeing against the protesters is reflective that the government is really not interested in bringing forth any change. And of course, as always, they point the fingers and the blame elsewhere outside. But again, you can point the blame if you see one person on the street, 10 people on the street, but really not when you see millions of people coming together from different socioeconomic backgrounds, uniting against what they believe is their fundamental right.
What, in your opinion, has brought all generations, all ethnic groups, all socioeconomic backgrounds together out onto the streets? I mean, I've seen images of elderly men on walkers taking to the streets chanting with young girls.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have to say, you see, folks from religious and conservative backgrounds. I think one of the most beautiful images that I've seen out of Iran, which, by the way, hasn't just been one, has been, images of women without their headscarves, showing hair, along with women wearing their headscarf. And this just reflects how people are united together from all walks of life against a system that has been choking them for years. This really is no longer a news story, but rather a reality for millions of ordinary Iranian people who are united, wanting to have their dreams met, wanting to have a better future, wanting to have a better life, what they really call normal, and what they think and know that they deserve. And they, quite frankly, and in all reality, they deserve a better life. So they're coming together to show that they know what they're getting from their government is not what they deserve.
I know you said that even if the government loosens restrictions when it comes to the headscarf, that is not going to put the genie back into the bottle. What can the government do in that case? Because it seems people out on the streets want more than just, as you said, curbs on loosening restrictions to headscarves, etc. But they want fundamental change right at the top. So what, short of the Supreme Leader catching a plane and leaving, will people be happy with?
I mean, there has to be a systematic cleansing. When you talk to people in Iran, they're frustrated on all fronts. We're talking about extreme domestic corruption, a stagnant economy. Iran, 80 million people, 80 million talented, capable, educated people are isolated. There is no way for them to connect to the rest of the world. I mean, internet is as slow as ever. And, just imagine a student wanting to get online just to get, their day-to-day work done. They can't. So we're talking about major housekeeping. We're talking about major cleansing within the system and really bringing forth various socioeconomic, political, civil changes. We're talking about human rights. We're talking about civil rights. There should be no political prisoners. There should be no journalists in prison. There should not be any children detained. We're seeing children arrested. We're seeing young girls as young as 14, 15, 16 arrested.
Tara, what can the international... I'm sorry to interrupt you. We don't have a lot of time, but what can the international community be doing to sort of get this change without Iranian authorities accusing the West of interfering in domestic politics?
That's, I think, the million-dollar question. First of all, we saw developments yesterday out of the United States. The State Department spokesperson, Ned Price, said that the United States is no longer really focusing on reviving the JCPOA or working on that deal, but rather focusing on the movement in Iran. And I think that's the first time we're really hearing a sort of policy shift. So I think everyone's waiting to see. We don't know, but the world needs to pay attention to what Iranian people are saying, and there are tangible ways that they can show support. Kick out government officials in their countries. They have children who are going to school, living life as people in Iran deserve. They need to be kicked out. I mean, there are policies that Canada, for example, has done a good job implementing, but I think the world is waiting to see what the United States will do, and of course, European allies. So this is the chance. This is the chance that the world has to stand up and say, Iranian people, we hear you, and we know you deserve more, and we're going to stand by you.
Interesting point. Tara, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having me.